Want to learn how to write an insert statement in SQL? You've come to the right place. You'll learn what the insert statement looks like and how to write one in this video. I'll also show you how you can use the insert statement to add data from one table into another. I'll also show you why it's recommended to include the column names in your insert statement. Let's get into the video. So what is the SQL insert statement? It's a statement in SQL that lets you add data to a table. When you create a table, it has no data in it. You use the insert statement to add data. You can also use it to add data to a table that already has data. So how do you write one? The insert statement follows a standard, which means it looks and works the same in all major SQL databases. So this code will work in Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and others. We start off with the command insert into. SQL commands are not case sensitive, so you can enter it in whatever case you like, but I like to enter my keywords in uppercase. After the insert into keywords, you enter in the name of the table you want to add data to. This table needs to exist. If you want to create a new table, you would use the create table statement. In this example, we'll add a new row into the product table. After you specify the table name, you can specify the columns that you want to insert data into. We open the brackets and specify each of the columns we're adding data for. Any column we don't specify here will have its default value used, which was either specified when the table was created or will be null. So enter in the columns you want to specify data for, separated by commas. Specifying the columns here is actually an optional part of the insert statement. You don't need to, but it's recommended to specify them. If you don't specify them, then your values will go into the columns in the order they are defined in the data dictionary. The problem is that this order is not guaranteed, so you can't be confident the data will go into the right column. It's more error prone to leave out the column names, so I always specify them when inserting data. Now we need to specify the actual values that go into the table. We add in the values keyword, then open brackets. After the open brackets, we specify the values that are being added to the table. These will correspond to the column names we entered earlier. So for each column we're adding data for, specify the value. In this example, we're adding a product ID and a product name, so specify the ID and then the name separated by commas. When you add data using an insert statement, you'll specify the data a little differently depending on its data types. For numbers, you can just enter them as is. For text values, you'll need to enclose them in single quotes, otherwise they are treated as database objects or columns and will cause an error. For dates, you can enter them in single quotes in a specific format, which will depend on your database. You may want to use a function to translate the text value into a date though, to ensure it's captured correctly. I'll cover this in a different video. Now we've added all the values, we end the statement by adding a closing bracket and a semicolon. To run this statement, click the Run button in your IDE. The button will be different in each IDE, but there will be a way to run your query. Once you run the statement, a new row will be added to the table. You'll see some kind of output along the lines of one row inserted. This means the record was added to the table. You won't see the data that was added. To see it, you can run a select statement to view the data in the table. We saw how to add a single row to a table. What if you want to add multiple rows? This is done slightly differently depending on your database. I'll explain how it can be done, and there will be a separate video that goes into this process step by step. A method that works in some databases is this one. It allows you to specify separate brackets, each of which contain a new row to insert. You separate each bracket with a comma. When you run this, multiple rows are added at once. To insert multiple rows in Oracle, we need to use a different method. We need to start with insert all, then we specify into the table name and specify the columns and values. For the second row, we specify the into table name again, and then the columns and values. We finish with the line select star from dual, as the insert all keyword needs a select statement. Once again, I'll have a separate video on how to do this. Another helpful feature of the insert statement is that you can insert the results from a select query into another table. To do this, you write the insert statement in the same way. specify the table and columns, but instead of the values clause, you specify a select query. The results of the select query will be added to the table. I'll also have a separate video on how to do this. So that's how you can insert a new row into a table. If you learned something new from this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. If you want to learn more about database design and development, visit databasestar.com. That's where I share my best database related content. Which step from this tutorial was the most helpful? Was it the fact that you can use the insert statement, or that the column names are optional but recommended, or something else? Thanks for watching.